There are games and then there are games, and today, that's what we're looking at. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell, where today we're going to do another Sensational 7. Why a 7 countdown? Because I have a little more energy than those that do top 5 countdowns, and a little less than those that do top 10s. Either way, I just like the number 7. So, without further ado, today we are going to talk about the top 7 games with stories in them. Now, I'm not talking Candyland here. I'm talking about something with an ongoing story, something that you can play through multiple times and have it come out a little bit differently each time. But I'm not restricting myself just to video games, so let's get right into it. Lucky number 7 brings us into horror stories, specifically Silent Hill, the horror macabre video game that takes place in a city that just isn't right, one where everything is off, and where supernatural things go bump in the night. Number 6 is another video game. Specifically, one that introduced us to the idea that anything a guy can do, so can a girl. The bounty hunter action piece, Metroid. And now, it's easy enough to play down just how important Metroid was in the history of gaming, but you need to remember, the idea of being able to backtrack, the ability to go back and forth, the ability to have hours worth of gameplay, discovering the entire gameplay option of how stories unfolded came about due to Metroid. Number 5 takes a step back away from the electronics and back to the books. In this case, it's a type of game called a role-playing game, the storytelling system from the 90s, White Wolf's World of Darkness. All those emos playing vampires, and all those crazy people who were drinking blood, all of those can go back to White Wolf's system that still to this day is one of the top-selling games of all time. Going back to number 4 is a set of franchises that I'm pretty sure are linked, and that would be our Hackers and Assassins between Watchdog and Assassin's Creed. The stories are very intermixed, and I'm going to be doing a whole video on the Assassin's Creed series anyway coming up soon. Number 3 takes us back into the paper and dice world, and for a game that I've talked about a lot on this channel already, and one that does deserve an in-depth look at the story of the World of Rifts, by Palladium Publishing. They just put out a new book for Savage World. If you're familiar with it, you should probably check it out. Number 2 keeps us in the world of paper and dice, but goes from super complex of Rifts to super simple. Monty Cook's new No Thank You Evil. Well, his whole cipher system. But as far as stories go, the introductory storybook system for kids takes the cake. I play it with my niece and nephew, and I think if you have kids, you should definitely introduce them. Our honorable mentions are both going to be different ends of every spectrum you can imagine. Final Fantasy is video games of old, Final Fantasy is high-action adventure, and Five Nights at Freddy's is brand new video games, specifically on Steam, and is entirely story-based. I could spend years just pulling apart the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. Moving on to number 1, if you liked almost anything on this list up till now, you owe a big thank you to Dungeons & Dragons, specifically Gary Gygax. He didn't create the idea of miniature role-playing, he didn't create the idea of a fantasy story, but he definitely took the two and put them together in the most iconic way. I would hazard to guess that we would never have seen Final Fantasy, Rifts, White Wolf, if we hadn't first seen Dungeons & Dragons. Everyone out there that enjoys story-based games should go out and play all of them. Silent Hill, Metroid, White Wolf, Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, Rifts, No Thank You Evil, well maybe that one's just for kids, Final Fantasy and Five Nights at Freddy's, and of course, the one that started it all, Dungeons & Dragons. So what do these games tell us about the heart of the story we tell? It tells us that everyone has a story to tell, that somewhere deep down we like the idea of being in control and telling our own stories, and working with them. It tells me that as the years have gone on, games have gotten more and more accessible, and the most important part, it tells me that there is an interest, a growing interest, in games that tell stories. Thank you for joining me back here at Sensational 7, a part of the heart of the stories we tell. And do leave in the comments what you think of these games, and if you can think of any that I've missed. Until then, I hope you have a good day, and I will join you back here on Monday for our normal Heart of the Stories We Tell. Thanks for watching.